Full disclosure, the title and idea for this video comes from a commenter who mentioned this idea on my first Optimus video, which also so happens to be the first video on the channel ever. It still amazes me that less than a year later, I'm still making content on the channel and that it has done so well. Thank you all so much for watching, commenting, and as always, disagreeing with me when I ask you to speak your opinions. It always makes the conversations more engaging. Alright, enough happiness. Let's get depressed. Optimus Prime has had an extremely tenured history as a fictional character. As with all things Transformers, there are so many continuities that change different aspects of the franchise, such as the background of Optimus himself. In the Skybound Transformers comics, however, we get an Optimus that is not wholly unique in his characteristics, but is, generally speaking, reimagined with a much more human side. Optimus is usually the strong, heroic leader who never backs down from a fight, and he is this in Daniel Warren Johnson's comics, but again we also get to see a more vulnerable side to him. Transformers Prime offered us an Optimus so stoic and so noble that there were times it was hard to relate to him. He was almost closed off. This is not a bad character choice in my opinion, as it gives us an Optimus so laser focused on the conflict at hand that he finally decides the only way to truly win is to finally destroy Megatron. But Skybound's Optimus feels a bit younger than this. He feels a little less experienced. Yes, the war has been going on for decades at this point. Optimus wasn't forged yesterday, but even still, he is obviously less experienced in life than many of his counterparts. We see this in how tired he is in the series. Writer and artist Daniel Warren Johnson does a fantastic job drawing the eyes of Optimus in this series, as even without pupils, we can easily feel the emotions spewing forth from our protagonist. Optimus oftentimes stands alone gazing at the stars, wondering what he will do next, wondering to himself if after all this time it was truly worth it. His conversation with Sparky in Volume 1 shows us that he fears he has become the very thing he swore to protect against. The war never ends. Everywhere he goes, violence follows. Optimus is in severe need of a licensed therapist. And I am not one at all. But I think what we can do as the readers of this comic is make a list of the emotionally taxing moments in the series and talk about the broader picture of what Optimus needs to do to move forward. So let's go in chronological order of the story, and as a reminder, I don't really do theory crafting, and so we're only going to count the events that happen on the page. If you want to know what issue each of these events takes place in, then at the bottom of the screen I'll make sure to reference it. Firstly, Optimus Prime watches Brawn get shot, losing a friend to Megatron's brutal ways. His eye is severely damaged by Megatron in this battle. Later, he is awoken aboard the crashed Ark and immediately must fight off Starscream. He finds Bumblebee's mangled body aboard the Ark. He holds Jetfire in his arms as he dies. Optimus accidentally kills a deer on Earth, realizing how dangerous he really is. He recalls the horrors of the war on Cybertron as he talks to Spike. He's shot with an RPG by the humans he's trying to protect. He watches as Spike is shot in the crossfire of a battle he feels responsible for. Some of these are obviously more physical than others, but don't forget when Optimus rips his own arm off of his body to pummel Skywarp into the ground. Optimus recalls the deer he killed earlier and sees that Spike is yet another casualty of his war. After the attack on the hospital, Optimus is left standing in the rubble to see how many are affected and how many might lose their lives due to his actions. He sacrifices the matrix of leadership to save the innocent. Optimus later argues with Ratchet, who is only trying to help him, but obviously the two have very different opinions on how they should operate on Earth. In response to this, he dons Megatron's arm and fusion cannon to level the playing field, something that obviously has lasting consequences that we see later. Optimus and Sparky both recall their past in the war, and Optimus delivers one of the most heartbreaking and terrifying lines in the series, saying that he wishes he knew why there had to be so much war. He gets to see RC come back to life, only for the Decepticons to immediately attack, something that honestly happens a lot in this comic series. Optimus is absolutely bodied by Devastator and almost loses his life. He gives the Matrix up to the next worthy leader before being revived by Sparky, an action that he will feel the full weight of shortly. Optimus begins having visions of a young Spike, a side effect of Sparky joining with the Matrix. Even though this one really technically isn't an Optimus experience, I'm going to include the moment here where RC says that his losses could fill a chasm, because that panel, that really hurt when I first read it. Optimus has more visions of Spike furthering his struggle. Jetfire is brought back online by Optimus's request, only for him to regret the decision when Jetfire reveals that he wishes he would have been left to rest after all this time. More physical abuse, as in when Optimus fights the Decepticons and their newfound power in the ocean. In a gut-wrenching move by Daniel Warren Johnson, Optimus watches as Ratchet sacrifices his own life to save Cliffjumper. Optimus is then tombstoned by Shockwave, which, I mean, come on, that's gotta hurt. He then meets up with Alita, who convinces him to leave Cliffjumper and Jazz behind while escaping battle. Optimus breaks the bad news to Wheeljack that Ratchet is dead. He is then berated by Alita, something that we will see a lot of, in this wonderfully drawn scene with the night sky as a backdrop, making it hurt even more as the reader. He is berated by her again in the next issue of the comic. Big surprise. He finally gets a moment of rest when he thinks back to his friendship with Ratchet, only to be interrupted by, guess what, Alita berating him again. He watches as Magnus flees from battle, broken by Shockwave, and begins to lose hope. Optimus finally loses it after mopping the floor with Combaticons and giving in to his old ways when shattering Shockwave's head, also seeing another vision of Spike, but this time consumed by his own rage. Optimus finally gets the chance to correct the mistake he made in leaving Cliffjumper behind, only for Alita to stop him. He decides to save Earth over Cybertron, and his relationship with Alita is over. Not that it was much anyways anymore. In the aftermath of this decision, a part of Cybertron crashes on Earth as Optimus asks himself, what has he done? Shortly after this, he experiences more visions of Spike, causing more issues in his mind. He is then shot at by more humans, which causes him to have a mental breakdown and turn to his old self. Later on, Optimus once again loses himself and blasts the dam to try and stop the Decepticons from hurting more innocents, but accidentally creates more harm than he does good. So Optimus has been through a lot in this series. And that's not to say that he hasn't in other continuities, but Daniel Warren Johnson makes sure that we see his reactions to most of these events. There's a sense of exhaustion to Optimus in the series. He is still a noble warrior, but he's running out of steam. There are moments of peace that he gets to enjoy, but they always weighed down by surrounding events. Think about that moment when he remembers Ratchet, only to be faced with Alita, or when he speaks with RC in issue 15, as the two share a wonderful moment. This is followed up with the realization that Ultra Magnus may be lost forever. This moment in particular shows Optimus' strength and iron will, however. Even after all the events that we've listed, and more that we didn't go into detail on, Optimus takes the time to speak with RC and tell her how proud of her he really is. Optimus is the father that we need in our lives. But even dads need therapy. And no, this is not a sponsor segment. But I'm not a therapist. And so, what can I even say about the situation? What would I say to a friend who is going through one of the hardest times of their lives, when it seems like all hope is lost and nothing is going right? Sometimes, all we can do in that moment is to be present. I remember years ago when I was in college, and I was going through a really rough patch. Nothing as bad as Optimus, obviously, but comparing life's difficulties is never a positive thing. During that time, I had a friend who stuck by me, even when I turned my pain into anger towards others. Did that friend tell me what to do, or dish out personal advice left and right? No. He understood that all he could do was be there. And perhaps that's what Optimus needs right now. A friend to lean on. Not one who will tell him what to do or what he's doing wrong, even if he is doing something wrong. A friend who will listen when the pain is too heavy to hold on to. And this is something that we can do in all of our lives. Be there for those who are struggling. We may not be able to fix the problem, and that's okay, because being present is enough. And also, maybe somebody else needs to give Optimus another hug. I think he really needs one. The last time we see Optimus in issue 16, he's on his knees looking at his hands, saying that it's just chaos all around him. And while this issue doesn't specifically focus on him much, it's mainly covering other characters during these events, I think we can really start to understand that Optimus is kind of at the end of his rope. Everything is out of control. Nothing is in his hands anymore. He's not sure what he can do to fix the situation around him. He feels responsible for everything that's going wrong, and obviously, something is going to have to happen to make a good change. Does everybody in the Skybound series need therapy? Yes, absolutely. Everybody in this series is suffering. That's what makes the series so good, that most characters here are in a horrible predicament of their own. But Optimus is bearing the weight of most of this pain. We still don't know exactly how this war started, but we do know that Megatron specifically blames Optimus for everything that's gone wrong. And with him obviously coming back into the picture, literally and figuratively, I think we're going to see Optimus go through some even more hard times coming up. I sure do hope that Daniel Warren Johnson gives Optimus a little bit of a break. He definitely needs to get that arm off of his shoulder, that way he can stop corrupting him. He needs to sit down and have a chat with a good friend of his. I think Cliffjumper could do the job. But obviously, Cliffjumper has his own issues that he's dealing with. So to wrap all this up, if you have a friend that's going through a tough time, maybe you just need to be around them. Just be there for them. You don't need to give them advice. You don't need to tell them what they're doing right or what they're doing wrong. You just need to be there. After all, at least in my opinion, that's the best thing that we can do for each other. Because it's what somebody once did for me. See you guys later.